Great. So yeah, we're in October 2021 as we're talking here in Perth, which is like 2/3 of my way through this bonkers journey. And from talking to folk, not just along this path but elsewhere, that kind of slowness and the not having to keep up with everything and say yes all the time, all of a sudden stuff seems to be stacking up, and a lot of us are finding it quite hard to cope with. It's quite a stressful thing. Mm-hmm. How is it for you now?
Yeah, I can totally relate to that, and I think there's a sense of the old life and the new life kind of now being stacked on top of each other, and I vowed, as did many of my friends and peers, that I wouldn't get back to the busy levels that I was at before, because you're not necessarily always doing work that you enjoy. You're just used to saying yes and panicking that if you say no that you won't get asked back, and suddenly you've got an empty diary. So it's been interesting to try to, it's not just doing all the things, but it's the worry that this autumn was also going to be locked down. I mean, I was quite pessimistic about the fact that we would still be able to be having concerts now, and looking forward to Celtic Connections, actually, whether it would happen or not. So fingers crossed it does, but it's been difficult, I suppose, to know what to prioritise. Whether to just ignore all my students and do all the gigs I'm offered to do, or whether to just keep taking it easy.
We started this Triall, this journey off in August on a perfect summer's day on Iona, when we sailed across the Sound to Mull, and what a difference. We've definitely moved from summer to autumn now. We're in October, just a couple of days before the gig. We've reached Perth. I was with Patsy Reid, the wonderful fiddler from this fair city. Spent a little bit of time talking, playing tunes. It was just really lovely. And now we're back on the river, heading downriver to Dundee. I'll probably cross the famous bridge, and then we're going to take a boat round into St Andrews itself. But for the moment, the boat we've got here is a canoe, and it's Mary Ann Power from here. Musicians, though, that's why I loved getting into radio in the first place. It is that two-way thing. It's a conversation. You're not just delivering something out there into nowhere land. It's making a connection. Did that change?
If anything, I think our reach increased. Because we started off things like a sort of midweek podcast, for example, that we didn't do before. To be honest, it was 9 months before BBC management realised we were doing it. We did it without a budget, without a brief. We just got on and did it in quite a new and different way. But what we're trying to do is to say to folk, look, yes, the human world is fundamentally very, very different, and it's changed and it's difficult, and we understand all of that. But the natural world, the calendar, what happens every year is still happening. In that regard, life is continuing as normal, and there's some wonderful, beautiful, life-affirming stuff out there. It was just actually giving people access to it.
That feels like it would be something that folk could grasp onto, to say that there is still a normal, that the world is still carrying on, and we can hold on to that.
Yes, yeah. No, absolutely. And I think there was so much in the news that was negative. To actually give to offer people 90 minutes of positivity was what we felt it was worth doing.
And did you get that feedback?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely, we got it. Absolutely. From people all around the world. I mean, they were emailing to say, thank you very much for this, this really helps. And even if it just helps a few people, or just helps a couple of people a little bit, you're moving forward in the right direction.
Do you think you'll hold on to any of the aspects of how your work and just you developed during these last 2 years, as you do out of doors, as you do the beautiful things you do for Radio 4? Is your imagination, the way you do things, is that going to change, stay with you, go back to normal?
I would love to say yes, but the reality of the situation is over, I would say, the last 3 to 6 months. I've felt myself creeping back now. I've fought against it, but it's difficult. It's difficult because folk are asking you to do things in a different, in the past there was no excuse. There was no option, rather. You had the perfect excuse for saying, actually, no, we can't do that. Slightly more difficult now. But I don't know. And I think for a lot of people too, who are at a dangerous age, 60, 60-ish, there or thereabouts, that an awful lot of people stepped back for 12, 18 months and looked at what they were doing with their lives and thought, you know what, I'm actually fulfilled doing this, not that. So it was an exit plan for a lot of people.
Well, coming from Perth and heading to St Andrews, nearly there, I chose to come along the North Fife coast through Newborough and Newport, and that means that I'm over the bridge from Dundee, but I'm going to take this wee diversion crossing over the famous Tay Bridge, and I'm going to visit a very good friend of mine who is actually right at the other end of the bridge, looking out over the Tay, as she knows.
Dow doodly dow dee doodly on the deal the dum dow doodly dow is rock of the edge go sitting dee dow doodly dow dee doodly on the deal the dum dow doodly dow his camels are on go zip away dow doodly dow dee doodly on the deal the dum dow doodly dow is rock of the edge go sitting dee dow doodly dow dee doodly on the deal the dum dow doodly dow his camels are on go zip away dow doodly dow dee doodly on the deal the dum dow doodly dow is rock of the edge go sitting dee dow.
Were you in touch with?
I was in
folks?
touch with a number of them. I did several things for fundraising. I did get offers once we'd all started Zooming and things like this.
Did you embrace the online world?
I did. I was quite surprised with myself. I spent a lot of time Zooming and Teams meeting and all this kind of thing. I did get a few gigs which were fundraisers, which were either for a festival or a venue or for one of the various funds that we had for the younger singers. And sometimes I got gigs that actually said, there's a fee. And as soon as they said there's a fee, I said, well, would you like to try so-and-so? Because, A, because they were more in need of the money than I was, and B, I thought it was important for them to still be doing their job and getting paid for it, you know, because I know a lot of them felt awful that they were having to ask for help to pay their rent and put food on the table and stuff like that. So I thought that was important too.
The feelings amongst musicians have definitely been up and down and up again. And how do you feel just now?
I feel quite good just now because we have just decided that the Whiteland Singers will start classes on the 25th of October.
Yay!
I was hoping that Alice Mara would be able to take over because Amy Lord, of course, who's now got a young baby, isn't able to make the weekly journey from her home in central Scotland. Unfortunately, Alice can't do it not this term anyway, so I'm going to be stuck with doing it myself, but that's it, all right. It'll just be so lovely to see them.
I'm sure the singers will be really happy about that.
In the one room. I mean, we've got to go through all the risk assessment rigmarole, the whole bit, obviously.
Did you gather on Zoom?
We
The Whiteland Singers?
We did have a couple of times, but it didn't work terribly well because quite a few of our singers didn't quite get it.
Yeah, it didn't suit everyone.
And it's also quite difficult because of the time lags in different places. You cannot do a sort of, well, you can't even do a thing without harmonies. When you start trying to put harmonies on it, it sounds bizarre. So we decided that possibly wasn't a good idea. I've done the usual couple of things with young singers just to work with them, give them material, that sort of thing. But it's been difficult to do it with the group, so I'm really looking forward to seeing them. I've seen them when they've turned up for the concerts, you know. We have a wee chat beforehand, which is everybody gets to be unmuted so that we can have a wee natter, and then they mute and we have the concert, which is good. But I'm looking forward to it. We will be able, because of the room, though, you've been in the White. And
that's in the library.
In the library, in the
Dundee,
centre,
yes.
We do have, we will be able to ventilate. This may mean, of course, that we will be sitting there singing, wearing 3 jumpers, an anorak and a balaclava, but we will be able to safely
Well, as long as it's a balaclava, you can have your mouths open instead of the masks.
It should be fine, and we've got room to sort of separate everyone out, and my generation is actually quite good at doing all the hand sanitising and social distancing and stuff like that, possibly because we know how precious life is.
If you want to go out walking, I will sweep the street. I'll scan the horizon for malcontents and less than heavenly witnesses.
I'll be dreaming in grey suits.
It was somebody else asking you about your dad's songs, and we do this, and you were magic. You were so lovely, and you just said, "Yep, go fly with it."
Well, it's one of those songs, isn't it? It just felt like the right thing to do. I think All Will Be Well is one of these songs that, you know, I've heard sung at weddings and at funerals and at other really important moments in people's lives. And I think that felt like that kind of moment. It was, you know, people needed something. They needed some sort of cheering up, something joyful. And that's what that song does, I think. So yeah, I just thought it was a fantastic idea. Absolutely, go for it.
Well, it was all the other singers that got involved that really made it.
Oh, it was wonderful. I was sobbing the first time I saw the video.
Great job done! Corinne Polwart, Raggy Dixit, Sam Lee, Soren McLean that I met at the beginning of this journey, and Hannah Fisher, and it was a thing of joy, and a choir of those very medical professionals that were literally on the front line, and that some really of them had already been through hell, and were survivors themselves, so that was really very special.
I remember one in particular was doing a very particular enthusiastic dance that sticks in my mind. That was one of my favourite bits, getting really, really into it.
And for them, the singing was the thing that took them out of that crazy world
and just let them do something else, even though it was all, the virtual choir thing. We've been on this journey. We've been meeting groups of singers, either just about to, or in a couple of instances actually being there when they've been inside and singing together for the first time, and it's a really emotional thing. You're going to love it. And you're going to howl.
Yeah, I absolutely am.
I can see you welling up already just thinking about it.
Funny, I kind of feel like that every week, pre-pandemic, just when we're, just a normal Monday night going into sing, we would get really emotional. So what's going to be like after all this time away, I actually can't even imagine what it's going to be like.
And what your plan's going to be. Or are you just going to see...
That's the thing, it's also unknown. We're just, I'm not sure how it's going to feel. So what I've had to do is, because my groups are so big, I've had to split them in half because we want to be able to distance a bit and feel safe. So I've split the groups in two, and they're going to come alternate weeks, which is a bit weird when you're a big group who love singing together, but we feel it's the right thing to do just now, just till we see how things go. So it's not going to be a very long term for them, because they're only going to come half that term, but we're hoping that we're going to do a wee performance at the end, sort of mid-December. Loads of women are based at the McManus in Dundee, and we usually do a big sort of Christmas concert there in December.
Art Gallery, isn't it?
Yes, in Albert Square. So we're going to hopefully do that again this year, but that'll be outside this year, and it'll be slightly different. It'll be the two groups will sing separately rather than the one big group. But I don't mind any of that, because at least we're getting to do something. It would have been easy to say, no, let's just wait until we can all come together again. But no, it's gone on too long now. Some of these women really rely on groups like this for all kinds of reasons, and they really need it. It needs to happen. So.